Welcome to the Daily Record Spin. I'm your host, Jimmy Clements. Joining me today, as always, is my brother, the co-host of the show, Danny Okey. Danny, how you doing today, man?
Pretty good. It's a nice day here. We're finally getting some spring-ish kind of weather. I know that it's full spring. We'll definitely go back into like 20 degrees probably in a week or two, but for now, I'm enjoying it. And yeah, there's lots of new music coming out every single week that I've been enjoying. So what about you?
It's actually been really warm here this week. Like 80, kind of like a bit too warm for this early in the year, if you're asking me.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You know, I'm having a good time. My new job is exhausting, but I am actually doing pretty well. So this is my second day off in a row after working 7 days straight. So I'm very happy to get some rest. Absolutely. And yesterday I checked off the final Best Picture nominee right before the Oscars. So something I haven't done since 2019, but I did every year from 2012 to 2019 to see every Best Picture nominee. So feeling good that I got a passion of mine back since COVID kind of derailed it all. So
yeah. I actually think that's probably the last time I did it too.
Yeah, it's been hard since COVID.
It has been hard. Yeah. So this is something that I kind of want to get back into next year.
I think it's worth it. This was I feel like really solid year. But a lot of the movies that got nominated weren't really big money makers. And so you kind of you either had to be really plugged in throughout the year, which my friend group was. And so we kind of saw everything as it was coming out, which actually made this sort of easy, but they were not huge releases. Like as much as I love things like Anora and Conclave, I'm not sure people outside of LA and New York had any idea about those movies until they were like long past.
Definitely not Anora. We got Conclave advertised a lot here, but definitely not Anora.
Actually, Conclave is doing pretty well. I heard it made $100 million, which is always a huge benchmark for Best Picture nominees. Plus, since it's been on Peacock, I think it's been like in the top 5 of movies on Peacock every week. So that's really good for that movie.
Yeah, it is. Very cool. All right.
So we are doing a fun exercise today. Since the only main pop girl that's really, really dropping something this spring is Lady Gaga, we decided with Mayhem coming out to go back and do a deep dive of her entire discography. And you want to sort of talk about why we thought that was the right move?
Yeah. I think with the release of the 2 most recent singles for Mayhem, Disease and Abracadabra, I think we wanted to, as an exercise, just go back and see how we got here. What in her discography has led to the sounds that we're hearing now, to the lyrics that we're hearing now? What albums are those singles most similar to? Is there a combination of different sounds happening? I think yes, and we'll get into that later, but I definitely see these singles as a very influential from her own work, the things that she's done in the past. So I think it makes sense to kind of do a deep dive now that she's 15-ish years into her career. To kind of see just how we got here.
Absolutely. This was really fun for me. There were a couple of these albums that I'd never listened to all the way through, which is a bit shameful, but you know, I was happy to rectify that this time. And why don't we just get into it? So Lady Gaga comes onto the scene very loudly with the release of Just Dance, I believe in 2000, was it 2008?
2008. Yep.
2008.
Yep.
Okay. And then releases The Fame shortly afterwards, her debut album. So let's start with The Fame. This was one of those that I had never listened to all the way through.
Okay.
It starts up with an incredible heater of songs.
Yeah.
Getting Just Dance, Paparazzi.
Yep.
What is the exact order? Love.
First 4 tracks are Just Dance, Love Game, Paparazzi, and Poker Face.
Yeah. Okay. So all huge songs.
Yep.
And then after that, it gets a little strange.
I agree.
It's a little thin. The production feels a little amateurish. But you have such a strong first 4. It's pretty crazy.
It feels very dated now.
Yes.
Even though there's a lot of some 2000s resurgence happening right now. People like Tate McRae are really leaning into that, and we'll get into the Tate McRae album at a different time because I'm gagging and I want to talk about it. But for now, there is a lot of 2000s resurgence happening right now, but even still, this particular sound to me sounds very dated. It's not like the Britney Christina kind of sound. It's a much more, I don't know how to, like, Flow Ride is on this album. You know what I mean? And like Flow Ride is pretty dated. Like that's kind of the sound that I'm thinking about.
It definitely feels of the late 2000s.
Yes, it does.
There were moments where I thought about Ellie Goulding's first album when listening to this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which I wasn't necessarily expecting to, but it definitely feels like, oh, okay, this is the sounds that were popular at the time. One thing I loved tracking as I was going through this is the amount of bass that exists in the music, which is fascinating to me. There's almost zero bass on these first two albums. And then as we get more closer to the modern day, the bass ends up becoming much bigger. And I've noticed that in pop music in general over the last 10 years is that it went from this very sort of glossy, thin sound to this very fat, kind of punchy, almost rock sound that has permeated the mainstream of pop. So, and I'm sure that's a hip hop influence as well, but very interesting to track as I was going through this.
Glossy is a good word for it. It sounds very bright, very shiny.
Yes.
Here is my issue, and we'll get into this in a little bit more detail as we go through. There's one album in particular that I want to talk about. These first few albums of her career, the first few years that she's really on the scene, it almost feels to me like she has a sound in mind and makes a bunch of songs with that exact same sound to see which ones will stick.
Yes.
So like Just Dance, that like there's one sound effect in Just Dance that happens like every bar that shows up, I think, in like 6 different songs.
Yeah,
Money Honey album.
Money Honey is almost the exact same backing track as Just Dance.
Exactly. So it feels to me like in the studio they were like, okay, this is what we're going for. Let's make a bunch of songs that sound like this, and we'll put them all out, see which one sticks. And Just Dance obviously was the one that stuck. But then you have an album of songs that are overly cohesive, in my opinion.
Copycatters.
Yes, definitely. So I think that's an interesting thing that's happening a lot in the first few years of her career.
Yeah. Well, also interesting to track on this album is its obsession with consumerism and materialism. Fascinating, because I don't associate those things with Gaga at all.
Yeah, me neither.
I guess it is of the times. However, I'm glad we pivoted from that like pretty much immediately after this album.
Yes. Agreed.
It's just very confusing to listen back to. It's like, what? That's Lady Gaga?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like anything that she cares about. So
agreed.
Really interesting. I think the important thing to track on this album is just how developed she was internally as an artist coming right out the gate. The comparisons to Chappell Roan are even more obvious now, going back to listening to this the first time. Just the way that she was fully playing this character from the very beginning. And I think back to some of these touchstone cultural moments of this era. Her going on American Idol and performing Poker Face was a truly sensational event in pop culture. Yep. And I don't know, like it's crazy to listen back to this stuff and just be like, oh, these are just a few songs from this like sprawling project that isn't really anything resembling a cohesive album, and yet they were like some of the biggest songs of our lifetimes. Like, crazy.
Yeah, it's also funny to me to remember her back. I mean, when she first came on the scene, like everybody was like, this girl is weird.
Yes.
Because she was weird, right? She was really avant-garde and very ostentatious and flamboyant, and wore these crazy outfits. Like you think back to the meat dress and all that stuff. The meat dress,
yeah.
And when you listen to the Fame, outside of like Paparazzi and Poker Face and kind of the big stuff, the rest of the album isn't that weird. Like it sounds pretty standard for what was happening in pop at the time. So it's interesting to see that juxtaposition. She gets a lot weirder later on musically, but I think in this album it's actually pretty straightforward. Nothing really stands out as like, whoa, what's happening?
Absolutely. One thing I want to note, now that we know that the lyric in Poker Face is poker face, fuck her face. Seems so obvious now. When you listen, when I listen back, it's just like, yeah, that's exactly what she's saying.
Yep.
And the fact that no radios caught it.
No one caught it
at the time. Pretty crazy.
It's not listed as explicit on Spotify.
Oh, she buried the lead a little bit. That's smart.
So you really can't. I mean, it's like one of those things that you can train your ear to hear either one. You know what I mean?
That's so true. That's so true.
But it's just hidden enough that she got away with it, which I think is so funny.
You can track when she's singing which one though, because it is different. So
it is. But if you go in, it's like the Yanny and Laurel thing. If you go in wanting to hear one, you hear it. If you go in wanting to hear the other one, you hear it. It's both. It really is both ways. But I agree that now that we know, it's a lot easier for me to hear the fucker face, which is really funny.
Any like standout moments on this album for you within songs, or even like memories that you have of some of these songs coming out? And
so for me, I did my deep dive of Gaga back in 2020, right before Chromatica was released, because at that time I had not heard. I don't think I had heard any of her albums in full at that point.
Oh wow,
which is crazy to say. That's not true. I think I had heard Born This Way in full, but that might have been it.
Yeah.
So a lot of these songs I don't really have memories with outside of the singles. Of course, like, Just Dance, I have memory of every single middle school dance that I went to. They were blasting this song. This was like every single middle school dance for me. And then I remember just Poker Face thinking, I have not heard this before. Do you know what I mean? Like it felt like a really fresh, that and Paparazzi, I would say, felt really, really fresh. And I think back to the VMA's performance of Paparazzi, where she's bleeding on stage. That was a pretty monumental moment. But I would say, I have tons of memories with the singles, but the rest of the songs I never really heard, to be honest.
Yeah, same here. I do want to share one fun memory of Just Dance. This played, one of the first times I heard it was at a show choir competition my freshman year. We were at Mooresville. I was a finalist in the solo competition, which in the show choir realm, for those who are not familiar, your entire school choir competes as a group on stage, but then also individual members of that group can compete in a separate solo competition. And at this competition, we got to perform at night during the finals, just the three like finalist solo performances. It was me, another girl from my school, actually, which is crazy, and one other person. But after that performance happened, we did our show choir like performances, the group, for finals. We were waiting for awards, and this song came on, and I was dancing, and I twisted my ankle horribly. And
I remember this
during that show. And so when we had to go up and accept the placements for the solo competition, I had to sit down because I literally couldn't stand. And so it was very sweet. The girl from my school, Emily, that was also nominated, sat down next to me. It was so sweet. Great memory. But Lady Gaga made me twist my ankle. That's how hard I was going for this song.
She went that hard and
she really
you to
did.
Go that hard.
She really did.
That's hilarious.
And re-listening to this, I've forgotten how inventive and fun that bridge is with the two different
so good
tracks going in the left and right ear. It's crazy. Yep. It's so fun. I'm like, you just really from the very jump, we're like, let's make music fun. Like, I love that.
I do. And
the other strong memory I have is after Poker Face, when she did it on Idol, I remember Chris Daughtry did a cover of it that was like excellent, and it was on YouTube. Just of him and the acoustic guitar. It's fun stuff.
Okay,
that brings up the comparisons to Chapel for me too. Is just how other artists reacted to Lady Gaga coming out.
Oh yeah,
and just like boom, everyone was like, okay, this is the song. We're gonna perform this.
Yeah.
We're gonna have.
They
fun
hovered
with this.
around her immediately.
Yeah,
immediately they were on board. So was just really cool. Are there any other songs outside of the singles on here that you think are particularly good or memorable?
I don't know about anything great. Let me go through real quick. There were a couple songs towards the end. Sarah's a big fan of Summer Boy. I think it's fine.
Summer Boy's pretty good.
It's a decent pop song. That definitely again feels of the era, and I quite like Brown Eyes as well.
Yeah, Brown Eyes is pretty good.
It's sort of ballady and definitely feels like something that comes later in her discography.
Yes. For me, Nothing Else I Can Say is borderline annoying to me, but I also like it.
Yeah, that one's okay. I don't mind it.
That one feels very summery. I think that one stands out to me because it feels very different from everything else happening on the album, which I kind of like. It stands apart, and I also really like Starstruck with Flo Rida and Space Cowboy.
Yes,
I like that chorus a lot. It just is very catchy to me. But I think as a whole, we're definitely looking at the singles here, and that's bad.
Yeah. And I don't even know that Gaga really cared about anything else. She was.
I think she needed an album. It was like she had all these singles, and the record label was like, okay, we got to rush and get an album out there. And I think they kind of just went with what they had. And
sort of feels like what happened.
Yep.
One thing that was fun to track too, as I was going back into this, because of watching some videos from the Mayhem stuff, I was like, oh, you're producing this. And turns out she's been a producer on her stuff from the very beginning, which is really cool to see.
It is cool.
Did not immediately realize that. I don't think she's ever really made it super big part of her identity, but very cool to see her level of creative influence on her own music.
Yes, I agree. Really quick before we go on to the next project, did you notice on Spotify that there is one song on every album that has one lowercase letter? Did you notice that?
No.
It's on every album. There is one song that has been altered to have one lowercase letter. So on The Fame, it's I Like It Rough. The first I is lowercase.
Oh, I see.
And the rest of the title is in capital. And this comes back every single album. And I don't know if this is. I did not do that. I did not see what it spells out. So The Fame, it's I.
Fame Monster Dance in the Dark, it's the D.
So ID, Born This Way, it's Electric Chapel. So IDE.
Okay.
Art Pop, it's Art Pop, the title track. So A. IDE. Okay, so we're at Idea is what we're at so far. Joanne, it's Sinner's Prayer. So S, Ideas. And then I don't know, did she count like A Star Is Born and all of that stuff, or probably not?
Probably not, I would guess. Because she's been advertising this as LG7.
Okay, Chromatica's Enigma. So E.
What letter?
E.
Ideas
E.
E?
Let's look at like the Joker.
Yeah, Harlequin
thing. Yeah, Harlequin. Let's look at that and see if
it is. There. Smile is a lowercase s in there.
So that's ideas
SE. Because right, because this is more recent.
Ideas ES.
Are there more? Did she do the cheek to cheek stuff too?
She might have, like Love for Sale and Cheek to Cheek. I don't see anything in Love for Sale.
It doesn't seem like she touched Cheek to Cheek either.
No, it doesn't. So it's just main studio albums. That's super interesting. I wonder what
E or Ideas ES. All right, Gaga fans, if you have any theories about this, please hit our mailbag. Let us know. Email us at the Daily Record Spin podcast at gmail.com. Or is it just the Daily Record Spin?
It's just the Daily Record Spin at gmail.com.
Email us at the Daily Record Spin at gmail.com or shoot us a DM on Instagram or TikTok as well. We want to hear your theories.
What does this mean? Because there's definitely some kind of Easter egg. Does this have to do with Mayhem? Does this have to do with something else? Has anyone else noticed this? Yeah, that's very interesting.
By the way, I should mention here that we have chosen to do A Star Is Born as part of this activity, but we are leaving out the Tony Bennett stuff and Harlequin as part of this. You know, if you want to be a completionist, that's definitely part of her discography and a part of her identity.
It is.
But I think tracking her pop identity, we felt like A Star Is Born made sense to include, and the others did not.
Yes.
So,
because there's stuff on A Star Is Born that I think is a direct result of stuff that was happening on Joanne.
100%. Yes.
And a lot of stuff that is in direct relation to what comes in Chromatica.
Wow, so, we have the same thoughts. So
yes, so I think it makes sense to include it in there.
Great. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the Fame Monster. This album was preceded by the release of Bad Romance, one of her biggest singles to date. It might still be. I don't quite know. All I know is when Bad Romance came out, this was before streaming, and I, every single day in my car on my way to and from school, would flip through every radio station trying to hear this as many times as possible.
Yeah.
Because I was absolutely addicted to this song.
Who wasn't? The song was everywhere.
It's
also, I think this song changed music videos as well.
Probably.
Everyone was talking about this music video.
Yeah.
So the Fame Monster arrives as essentially like a deluxe version of the Fame. It's, yes. I think, technically we can categorize it as an EP, but most Gaga fans recognize this as her sophomore album, I think.
Yes.
And it is 8 tracks, so it's kind of, it can be considered either, right? It can kind of be an EP or
for sure. Album. It's an interesting thing today because it is 8 tracks and does in some ways feel like an EP, and yet it's the exact same length as Short and Sweet. And so
that's a good point.
These songs are long, so
songs
it's not
were longer back then.
It's not. Yeah, it's not like it's exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
it's an in-betweener.
Consolidated. It's definitely an in-between. It's an interesting album. Yeah. I love this album. The Fame Monster has long been one of my faves, and there's just not a bad song in here. They're all good.
Not one.
It's just
this
so
is
tight.
Where I think my theory is that this is really the album that she wanted to make.
Yes,
I think
that's how I feel.
I think the Fame feels rushed and it feels derivative of Just Dance, like we talked about. Like it was just trying to recreate that hit over and over again. But I feel like had she been given more time, this is what she would have landed on, because this one is much more experimental. There's much more diversification between songs. They stand out a little bit more, and the hits are hitting on this record.
It's unreal.
I mean, the string of Bad Romance, Alejandro, Monster is crazy.
Nuts.
And then you have Telephone in there as well.
Yeah. So which to this day, Telephone is my favorite Gaga song. Oh, I wanted to go through your top 3 tracks from each one, so we should hit the Fame real quick.
Okay, so for the Fame, it's just going to be the singles for me. I would probably put Poker Face on top.
Yep.
I'd probably put Just Dance second, Paparazzi third. That's probably what I would do.
Honestly almost the exact same, except I would do Love Game instead of Paparazzi.
I considered Love Game. I do love Love Game as well.
I also love Paparazzi, so I have no qualms with your decision. But again, Poker Face first, Just Dance second.
Yeah, definitely. I think that this is just, it feels very much a continuation of what she set up on the Fame, but it feels like this is where we get Lady Gaga to me. Like,
yes.
This is where her persona matches her music.
Yeah. This album is very for the gays re-listening to it.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is a key part of her identity going forward.
It is.
It was very strange to me that wasn't present on the first album. And so I was like, oh, okay, this is Lady Gaga now. Like when I hear this, I just think this is Lady Gaga.
Exactly. I think the singles on the Fame essentially got her the Fame, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then this is what made her a superstar.
Yeah.
100%. The one that as I get older that I am just like living every time it comes on is Alejandro.
I love that song.
That song is so good. I loved it back then, but I appreciate it way more now. I don't know why. It's just that one is aging like fine wine to me.
It really is.
So good.
I also remember a second American Idol performance, very iconic. When she was announced as performer, everyone thought she was going to do Bad Romance, and she gets up there and she does Alejandro, which had not been released yet. And I remember being like so confused at first, and then that performance was so memorable to me that I was like, this woman is just a step ahead of everything.
She is.
She's like, I am controlling my own narrative. You all have to catch up to me. I'm in charge, you know.
And then it became a smash. Alejandro became a
smash.
But there are some also lesser known songs in here that I think are excellent. Speechless, I think, is one of her best ballads ever.
Yes.
I love that song. She sounds incredible on it. Again, it feels very different from the rest of what's happening, so it stands out in a really good way, in my opinion. And then Dance in the Dark, I think, is such a fun pop song. Super underrated pop song. I think
the
that
chorus
one could have
of that song is fantastic. It's very almost like Carly Rae Jepsen-y. It's very,
yeah, I could see that.
Just like fun pop.
Yes. Again, very glossy, right?
Yeah, very glossy.
I think this is the Fame Monsters where she really dips her toe into dark pop, which is what we're getting a lot with the new singles, right?
Yes.
And
I really think where the industry went. I mean, people like Billy and Lord, they're definitely influenced by this.
Yes, for sure. I don't think this entire thing is like Speechless is not, Teeth is not, right?
Teeth is not.
Those songs are not really dark pop, but like you have Bad Romance, Alejandro, Telephone. Those really start ushering in kind of the dark pop sound that fans.
Yeah, I even think Monsters to some extent is that way too.
Yeah, yes, I agree with that as well. Yep. All I can say is I'm anxiously awaiting for Telephone Part 2. It will come one day.
Yeah, come on, baby.
You saw the? Did we talk about the lie detector thing yet? The Vanity Fair lie detector thing. Did you see this?
No.
So you know how Vanity Fair does those interviews where they hook people up to a lie detector?
Yeah.
Gaga did this, and they asked her straight up. They said, this music video shows a picture of the Telephone music video, says to be continued at the end. Will this ever be continued? And she says, yes. And then they slide a picture of Beyonce over to her and say, will this person be in it? And she said, maybe. So,
okay, interesting.
I think it will come eventually. I don't know that it's coming on Mayhem. There's not really anything on there in the track list that is screaming Telephone Part 2 to me.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping one day we will get another Beyonce Gaga collab.
Yeah. Of note, Sarah illuminated me on this last night. So I was listening to Chromatica, and then Spotify started auto playing, and the song Video Phone by Beyonce came on that features Lady Gaga. And I didn't realize that song had come out after Telephone, and it was sort of literally referencing it with the title. Sarah explained that to me.
I didn't know that either.
So maybe, I don't know if that was the soft sequel to it, but maybe we're getting a hard sequel to Telephone at some point.
I would love that.
Which would be very cool.
Praying, hoping, crossing my fingers. That will be for the gays and the gays only.
100%.
Any other thoughts on this other than I feel like this is what really created Gaga?
Yeah. I remember the Grammys night, very interesting. A lot of people had thought this would win Album of the Year. It ended up losing to The Suburbs, which lost its own category by Arcade Fire. So that was a fun moment in Grammys history where everyone was like, huh? What?
Yeah.
Just good times. They had lost to the Black Keys in their own category, and then they somehow won Album of the Year. Love the Grammys.
That's like classic Grammys to me.
That is classic Grammys.
That's the Grammys of my youth. That's what I remember.
Yes. Just random shit going on at all
random.
times.
Yep.
I love this album.
Top 3.
It's top 2 for me. So
no, I'm saying what are your top 3?
Oh, okay. Top 3. Telephone is still my favorite Gaga song, so I'll put that at 1. 2, I'm gonna say Bad Romance. It's just like her biggest, just like craziest single. And then 3 is really a tie for me between Alejandro and Teeth. 2 songs I really enjoy.
Teeth is really fun.
Yeah.
I think right now it's Alejandro for me at number 1.
Love.
Then probably Telephone, then Bad Romance.
Great.
Is probably what I would say.
We've been very in lockstep on these so far.
Yeah.
And part of it is just because her singles are so massive, but
yeah, they are.
It's okay. I might differ on this next one. So why don't we talk about this next one? Born This Way, preceded by her popping out of an egg. Great performance. This song gets a lot of traction. I mean, in our little small town Indiana Catholic community, this was a very controversial album.
It was.
Born This Way, openly advocating for LGBT people to be living their proudest lives, free from judgment. And this becomes sort of her mission statement of her career, to be honest.
Yep.
Going forward. And this album is interesting. It's like if you took the Fame Monster and stretched it out and added like a metal element, but not fully diving into that. Just kind of like a soft, like we're wearing hard leather with like the little metal buttons, but we're not quite gonna be Rina Sawayama here. So interesting album.
And it's funny that you bring up Rina, because I actually do feel like Rina had the freedom to do what she did because of this album.
100%. That's the case for a lot of Gaga stuff. She walked so others could run.
She was highly influential every step of the way. I mean,
yes.
and there was never a project where she didn't influence culture in some way, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a very irksome album to me. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to get it out there right now that I have a very unpopular take, because people love Born This Way and many herald this as her magnum opus. I think there are like 5 songs on this album, and I will demonstrate that. Okay. The 5-ish songs. I don't know if a 5 is exactly correct. The 5-ish songs are Edge of Glory, You and I, Born This Way, Judas, and then I will give the 5th to Bloody Mary. Okay. Every other song sounds exactly like one of those 5 songs. Specifically, Born This Way, Judas, and Edge of Glory. Edge of Glory is on this album like 6 times.
It really is. Okay. Yeah.
And I will name them: Marry the Night, Hair.
Yeah.
Highway Unicorn. Okay, that's really. Oh, and on the deluxe, the Queen.
Okay.
All of those are Edge of Glory. They're all Edge of Glory. And then Born This Way, there's really only one, and I'm trying to remember which one it is. I've actually forgotten now. I want to say maybe it's Bad Kids. There's one. No, I think it's Heavy Metal Lover. There is one song, I can't remember if it's Bad Kids or Heavy Metal Lover, that literally is the exact same instrumental as Born This Way. The exact same. Judas shows up in Government Hooker, literally the opening of no, I'm thinking of the wrong one. Shiza, the opening of Shiza is the bridge of Judas. It's the exact same thing.
Kind of, although we'll get to this, the lyrics. I love Shiza.
Okay, I do too, but it's because I love Judas.
Fair.
Judas also shows up on, I think, Bad Kids. And there was one other, I think it was Government Hooker. Is very similar. Americano, I will also give, is a little bit different, right?
I like Americano a lot.
And You and I, nothing else on the album sounds like You and I.
No.
And I think Bloody Mary is also pretty distinct. But the rest of the album feels to me, we went from The Fame, which I said a lot of that sounded like Just Dance, right? And then this one, there's more than just Dance, right?
Yeah.
But still, a lot of the album is just derivative of the last thing that came before it, right?
Yes.
And that bothers me. Now,
yeah, we became enamored of a sound on this one, and we just kept smacking it.
Kept doing it over and over and over again. However, what I will say is, I love the sound, right?
It is a great sound. Great sound.
What she went for on this album, I am obsessed with. I just think a lot of these tracks fade into the background by, they're overshadowed by their more popular sister, whatever song it sounds like, right? I texted you yesterday. I forgot that Judas is the greatest song ever made.
It's so good.
I think that Judas is my favorite Gaga song.
It's also my favorite Gaga music video.
Oh yeah.
It's an unbelievable music video.
It's so good. Like, that's what I'm saying about this album. It frustrates me because so much of it is so samey.
Yeah.
But it's also like the sounds are fantastic. Like this is the kind of sound I want from Gaga. And I think one of the heavy influences in what we're getting now. So
100%.
I think both Disease and Abracadabra don't happen unless Born This Way happened. So
yeah, they feel very much of this moment.
Yes, they really do.
Yeah, Born This Way, it's a little bit frustrating because the highs are enormously high.
Yeah,
and there's some really wonderful songwriting on this album, and then there's just a lot that is so forgettable. I think everything from Bad Kids to Electric Chapel is just like I can leave it. I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
But the songs I love on this album are fantastic, and so it's just a little bit hard to process it. I ended up being more favorable to this than I was expecting, and I think that's because it's aged well in terms of because it now feels familiar because so much of music has gone this direction. It feels less jarring than it did at the time. And I'm way more forgiving of some of the songs not being as great as I was when I first heard this. When I was just like, why can't everything be a single? Now I'm like, it's fine. That's not really Gaga's MO, to be honest.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember I think we got the CD when this came out.
Yeah.
And we listened to it and both of us were like, what is this? We were so, I mean, Born This Way as the lead single was a little bit misleading, right?
Yes.
Because that one is super glossy, very radio friendly pop music and one of her best singles ever, by the way.
Yeah. And it feels like a Bad Romance continuation kind of.
Yeah.
And it feels very much of that.
The rest of the album just really doesn't have that kind of sheen on it. It's a little bit more grungy.
Yes.
So, but I agree with you. Going back, I was like, oh, they all kind of sound the same to me, but I'm enjoying it. Like I'm having fun listening to it.
I agree.
You and I is crazy.
Yeah, it's a perfect song.
It's an outlier on this album. It really is. It doesn't sound like the rest of this album does.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where it came from. It feels like it would fit more on Joanne. But I think that's
Joanne is an entire album based on that song.
Yes, I completely agree.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think she really enjoyed exploring that and then decided to really open up that can of worms and made a whole album out of it. I'm with you.
What's interesting is it's not the next album. And so this was like lingering in the back of her mind, I feel like, for a while, and was like, what if I just did that for an album?
Well, she's such a multifaceted artist. Like it's clear that the kind of folksy bluesy stuff is a huge part of her influence.
Mm-hmm. It's how she sings.
It is. And so is
like her vocals are always like that.
And then there's also the jazz standard part of her that clearly she has a huge passion for. She's done so many projects now where she's really done the jazz standard thing. So, she's not a one-trick pony by any means. She's a Renaissance woman when it comes to music. So you can really feel that. And I think the seeds of that start to be planted in this album.
Yeah, definitely. She's kind of, I feel like You and I is a bit of testing the boundaries of what she can get away with as a pop artist. Yeah, because I think you can see that she is already a little bit bored of this thing that she's currently making. And she's like, okay, what can I get away with here? What will people still be interested in? And You and I did very well. And there's another iconic performance that I remember of her being in drag. Doing this in the honky tonk.
I was about to bring this up.
What show was that on? Was that the VMAs?
It was the VMAs, and it was the same VMAs that Beyonce announced her pregnancy, by the way. So very iconic.
And the Love on Top performance?
Yes.
So, I think the Love on Top performance with the pregnancy announcement is my ultimate award show moment of all time.
Yeah.
That's number one.
That's lore. Like that is that's history right there.
Because I was just dumbfounded that she could do that, period. And then when she announced that she was pregnant doing it, I was like, I give up. No one's more talented than Beyonce. It's just
crazy. But yeah, this that performance, I think what we're dancing around is, I think probably the main reason that Gaga got to where she is now is because she was a performance artist.
Yes.
Obviously she has hits, she has incredible music, but she really is who she is because of who she is as a performer. And there's a reason we keep bringing up music videos and performances with each era, is because she is more than a music artist. She's a visual artist. And the drag performance of You and I, where she's banging on the piano, jumping on the piano and doing all this crazy stuff, there was dialogue, there was a scene before the actual song even started. She was breaking boundaries left and right, and namely for queer people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you can track that throughout all of this. This is, I actually want to mention this here. She is sort of, to me, an artist that is beyond reproach. Like, has she ever done anything that wasn't like a good move in terms of like her moral compass and like,
in terms of moral compass? No.
Yeah.
She has not misstepped.
Yeah. She has always been so commendable in everything that her mission, her, what she does for her fans, like her speeches, she always uses her power for good. And I think that we have to hammer that home, because like she has no incentive to do that. She's so big.
No.
Like, she doesn't need to be doing that to gain a following or anything like that. She does it because that's what she cares about. And that's awesome.
She's like a philanthropist that accidentally got famous. Like,
yes, absolutely.
Like, she really has one of the most genuine hearts, I think, of any of the big pop artists.
Yeah.
1000%. Any other thoughts on Born This Way?
I think this is her first album.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
Like, to be honest, because like I love the Fame Monster, but it is essentially an EP, and this was her first real album. So we gotta give her flowers for that. It feels like a project.
This is the first time she's tried to make like a body of work that really said something, I think. What came before it was really a collection of singles.
Yes.
I think. It's not super successful for me, and we'll go through our ranking at the end, but I think the hits on here are undeniable. Like I said, Judas is a classic for me.
Yeah.
And I think I'm finally over the Catholic shame of liking Judas.
Yes.
I was so afraid to like that song as a kid.
Oh, me too. I was like, I'm going to hell.
Now I'm like, fuck it. This song is excellent. So,
it's so good.
I think we don't have the Gaga now without this album. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And her Grammys performance Arriving in the Egg will always be probably a top 5 performance all time for me. So it's excellent. My top 3, that's so hard. Judas, number 1, obviously. I think Born This Way is probably number 2. That's just such a fantastic pop song. And I think I'm just going to be lame and say You and I for the 3rd. I think
once again. So my 3 are Judas, You and I, and then Scheitze. I love Scheitze. It's something so rhythmic about it. I love her like sort of spoken word German.
Yeah.
It's very creative. It's fun. I like that song a lot. When that came on, I remember liking it when it first came out. And then when I re-listened to it, I was like, oh, I like it way more now.
It's so
my
good.
taste is a little bit more,
I also,
open.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'm in.
I also want to shout out that there is some really good stuff on the deluxe of this. I think Black Jesus plus Amen Fashion is actually a really great song. That one feels pretty unique to me. I love Fashion of His Love. It's literally just I Want to Dance with Somebody. It is, I kid you not, the exact same song. The instrumental is exactly the same. The melodies are exactly the same. But it is a lot of fun. I mean, I Want to Dance with Somebody is a lot of fun. But Fashion of His Love is a really good, very fun, feel-good song. So, that's about it for me for Born This Way.
Great. So let's get to my favorite thing about this exercise, which was revisiting art pop. So this was Lady Gaga's follow-up to Born This Way. It came at the height of her fame and was a complete miss at the time. Nobody liked this album. I listened to it once and completely panned it. It did have Applause on it, which is the last song, and was a fairly successful single in its own right. But the rest of the album sounds nothing like it. And as a result, nobody really liked this. Can confirm that in 2025, this album absolutely rips. It is so good. She was way ahead of her time with this one.
I am here on this podcast to simply advocate justice for art pop because this is her best album for me.
Yes, I fully agree.
It is her best album. And it's so funny. Like, this is the funniest lore in her career for me because you're right. Like, everybody hated this album when it came out. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a very distinct, and like my little closeted gay heart lived for this, but there was a feud between her and Katy Perry of who was the bigger pop artist and who had the bigger single. So Roar and Applause came out like at the same time.
Yep.
And they had like a chart battle going on, and I was living for it. And I was like, Katy Perry, Roar is that girl. That is a hit. Prism, fantastic album. I'm here for it. And now in 2025, it's like Roar is cringe. Prism was a flop, and Art Pop is like the pinnacle of Lady Gaga's career. So somewhere along the lines that really flipped. It just goes to show that the immediate gratification did not pay off for Katy Perry.
Yeah.
It's just really funny to think about now how in it I was for Katy at the time, and how horribly that has aged.
Yeah, this album is, first of all, when we were tracking the bass at the beginning, this is where you start to get really bassy, and you get these huge beats.
Yep.
And I just think her lyrics on this album, her clear joy for making this music, it permeates everything that she's doing on here. It's all cohesive, but the songs feel distinct.
Oh yeah,
it's special. Like it feels like something that would come out now.
Yes, this is experimentation at its finest. Like,
yes,
this is an artist who clearly has risen to very high heights, popularity wise, has made a bunch of money, and is like, now I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want. And that's what she did on this album, and it may not have paid off at the time, but it has paid off in the long run. I love the string of the first three songs where we're kind of doing the Greek goddess narration through line. All three of those are absolute hits to me. Aura, Venus, and G.U.Y are just like, nuts. what a way to start the album. Like, holy shit. And even Sex Dreams right after that. All four of those songs are like all-timers for me in her catalog. Like, such a great way to open up this album.
Yes. Rediscovering Venus in particular was my favorite part of this entire exercise.
Venus
I've listened to that nonstop since I've re-listened to Art Pop. So that song just rules to me. It's so good.
It is so underrated. It's crazy how underrated that song is. This album has one flop to me.
And Jewels and Drugs?
Jewels and Drugs sucks.
It's a horrible song.
Oh my God, it's awful. I don't know how it ended up on here at all. It's so not the vibe. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. But horrible. The rest of the album is great.
Yeah, I'm willing to forgive.
I am sad still about Do What You Want.
So I was about to say, this album needs Do What You Want. And that's the problem.
It's so sad because fuck R. Kelly. She was absolutely correct to remove it. I kind of wish she would have just put on the Christina version. I feel like we could have done that.
Actually, when I re-listened to this album, I just went ahead and queued up the Christina version after Manicure, right before Art Pop, where this song was originally on the album. And I think it needs it because the songs around it are not very hooky. And you kind of need that rebalancing act in the middle of the album to be like, do what you want. Like, like just something that like is easy to latch onto. You need that sort of like oasis in the desert for a moment, just to be like, oh, okay, I get this now. Okay, now I'm back on the ride. And without it is missing something. So I would recommend that people do that when they listen to it. In between Manicure and Art Pop, just go ahead and slot Christina's version. It's not as good as the R. Kelly version. Obviously, I'm not advocating for people to go listen to R. Kelly, but that original single was pretty special, and it's a very huge bummer. But again, Lady Gaga being beyond reproach, just removed it from the album and pretend it doesn't exist, which is amazing.
She made the correct decision, I need to say. She made the correct decision. It's just sad because that is such a hit. That's such a classic. And definitely is such a great part of this album. So to contextualize this with where we are now, I think what we're getting from her, Abracadabra and Disease, I think is a really solid mix between Art Pop and Born This Way.
Yes, agreed.
I think we're getting that crazy bass from Art Pop, the weirdness from Art Pop, but we're getting the hit making of Born This Way. It's a perfect marriage of the two to me, and that is super exciting me for what's to come on the full project.
Yeah.
What do you think of Swine?
So Swine's in my top 3 on this album.
I love Swine.
Swine rips.
That build up right before the drop, it honestly makes me feel uncomfortable. Like, it gives me anxiety. Like, it makes my heart rate. It makes my heart rate do things that I don't particularly like. But when you get to the drop, that release is so good. And she's doing crazy things with her voice on this song. She's yelling at us. It's awesome.
Well, just her vocal as an instrument on this album is really cool because she's agreed. It's just so much power.
Yeah.
It's dancey power. Like it's amazing.
It is.
I think Mary Jane Holland is the weirdest weed song of all time, because it feels like it's written by someone who has never smoked a blunt in their life. Did you just realize that? That's what that song is about?
I didn't know this was about weed. Yeah.
Great. So yeah. It just doesn't vibe well if you're like trying to put this on a 420 playlist. Yeah. Doesn't really make sense, but
it's fine.
She was trying to do it for a community that felt underserved at the time. So good for her.
Honestly, art pop sounds more like a high song to me.
Oh yeah,
it's kind of vibey and weird. Like the instrumentals kind of messing with your brain a little bit. Yeah. Swine is a classic. Donatella, I love. And it's even funnier now. Do you know the meme of Donatella Versace? Do you know what that is?
Is that from when she was on House of Gucci or something?
No, it's like she comments that on things. Like I don't remember what the initial post was, but it had nothing to do with her. It was like, I think it was like either something political or something like really serious. And underneath, she just comments, and by she I mean Donatella Versace, not Lady Gaga.
Oh.
She commented her name, Donatella, and in all caps, Versace. It had nothing to do with it. But anytime I hear this song now, that's all I can think about. And it's fucking hilarious.
That's like so when you do a tag for yourself, like mustard on the beat. It's like
it's so
it's like,
weird.
Donatella Versace, and then the song.
I'm gonna try and find the original meme because this. Oh my god, it was actually so recent.
Was it really
so recent? Yeah, because it's a. It is a post by Bella Hadid, and it's a heart. You know those like Valentine's little awful heart candies that are really chalky and gross. It's a picture of that, gross. And it says on it, "Will you free my Palestine?" And underneath it, Donatella Versace commented, "Donatella Versace" with a purple heart.
Everything about that is so cringe. Just everything.
It's like I don't know how how did we get here? I have no idea, but I'm very happy that we did.
The internet once again undefeated. By the way, I want to mention that Gaga's internet presence. She's one of those artists that you can absolutely tell does not subcontract her social media. Like it is her, very clearly being the one that's commenting and posting on there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
which I love that she has time for.
That girl is chronically online. Like I watched TikTok. Like when Abracadabra came out, people were doing the dance to it. She was commenting on every single one.
Everyone,
like, yes, get it, girl. Like,
yeah, she's like, I love this version. I'm like,
yeah, like, girl, don't you have like an album to promote? Like, aren't you like on a press tour? Like,
the thing is that is album promotion today.
It is
like she's once again ahead of the game.
Yep.
She's saying, I don't need to promote this album. I just need to hype up other people that are promoting it for me.
Yep.
And then get them more views.
And talk about being ahead of the game. Art pop is the definition of being ahead of the game. Like,
yes.
Do we have Charlie XCX without art pop?
No.
Do we have do we have hyper pop at all? Like any of this experimental stuff that I'm really into right now.
Yeah.
Art pop was there, and here we are over a decade later. And it's finally catching up.
The seeds of Brat are all over this album.
Yes,
that's all I was thinking
100%.
about listening to this. Yeah,
100%. It's just crazy how ahead of the game she was.
Yeah,
and makes sense why people didn't like it at the time because it was
because it's weird as hell.
It's super weird and it challenged people and they didn't like it. They were like, I want the hits. I want the
and
really
especially when you're talking about
songs.
Competing with Katy Perry, who was just doing the most down the middle pop music at the time.
Yes. And it was digestible at the time, and that's why it won the feud, but has not won the long game. Gaga was playing chestnut checkers.
Yep, absolutely.
She really was.
Closing thoughts on our pop top 3. Any other
It's a classic. Her best album. I don't even know that I can come up with a top 3. We didn't talk about one of her best songs of all time, which is my favorite on this album, which is Gypsy.
Oh yeah, is a great song.
Classic. It is so phenomenal. That chorus. Wow. Brilliant. So for me, it's probably Gypsy, Venus, and G.U.Y. It's probably for me.
Once again, I'll go Venus, G.U.Y, and Swine for mine.
Okay.
Those are my favorites.
We're always one away.
I know. That's, is kind of interesting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because on that one, we didn't necessarily pick, neither of us picked Applause on that one. which is the big single. So
right, but weird. Far from the best song on the album.
Yeah, agreed.
Far from it. And then we get Joanne.
Yes.
Which is such a weird progression. You would think that we would have gotten even weirder.
Yeah.
And this is her like millennial like
stomp and holler,
folksy stomp and holler diversion. What do you think about Joanne?
Complete reverse of art pop. Liked it at the time, didn't like it on the re-listen.
Yeah. I liked it at the time. I've never loved this album. I think it has really great moments. I think it starts off really strong. Like for me, Diamond Heart Through Million Reasons is actually a really good album. And then after that, it just gets, I don't know, cringe.
Yeah, Come to Mama is an objectively bad song.
That's not good. Yeah. I don't like Sinner's Prayer. Grigio Girls is cringe. Just Another Day is cringe. I actually do like Hey Girl with Florence Welch. That's a pretty good song.
One's a good one. I mean, anytime you want to like put out a song with Florence Welch, I'm okay with that. Like she
her
doesn't miss really. So
correct.
Angel Down is fine. I feel like she wanted it to be this big centerpiece of the album, and it's just not really that.
It's sequenced weirdly. I think Angel Down is sequenced weirdly. I actually really like Angel Down. I think it's a really powerful song. And she did it during the Chromatica tour. Like it's clearly a very
interesting
song. For her. You know, it's all about useless shootings and where are our leaders? I think is a really powerful lyric. I don't know. It's just a very inconsistent album for me, and none of the like really good songs in this album I think are anywhere near the great songs that we've heard before.
100% agree. This album is produced by Mark Ronson, which I found fascinating.
That is
because he's such a great producer and was of the moment when she put this out. And so I don't disparage any of her reasons for doing this album. It definitely is a side of herself she wanted to explore. It's stripped down. It's a direct response to the criticisms of art pop, or that it was too loud, too in your face. And she was like, okay, I'm going to show you that I can be a songwriter, quote unquote.
Yes.
But I think because of that, she like, I don't know, loses a bit of the essence of her. And I mean, it's very intentional. I mean, the album cover is she's like barely wearing makeup.
Yep.
You know, it's a complete reversal of everything we've come to expect from her as an artist. So in that way, I appreciate the progression, but this album felt very dated to me in the same way that The Fame did, where I was just like, okay, we're just doing the millennial thing.
Yep.
Like I just was like, this is Philip Phillips. This is Mumford & Sons. This is a little bit of Motown for some reason. There are some good songs in here. I really like AO.
I love AO.
A song that used to play as the second song whenever my music shuffled because the A-Team was always first and then AO followed. I've heard it probably 100 times. I don't get really sick of that song. Perfect Illusion, I completely forgot was on this album. I was totally thinking that it was on some other project. It doesn't really fit.
Lead single.
It doesn't fit anything else on this album. But I like that song. Million Reasons, I think, is the best song on this album.
I think it's really also the biggest hit from this album.
Yeah. And very much feels like what then happened after this, which is A Star Is Born.
Yes.
And so it's fun
which
to
is
track.
A much better record.
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. For me, my top three is probably, I think my favorite on this is actually Joanne. I really love this.
I love Joanne. Yeah, Joanne's in my top three too. Yeah.
It's a beautiful song. It's probably Joanne, AO, and Million Reasons for me are probably
same exact three. Okay. Same exact three.
Yep. Diamond Heart is fine. I actually I think it's a good album opener. John Wayne is fun. Dancing in Circles is freaky. But yeah, it's just not a project that I have really gone back to since the year it came out. And when I did go back to it, I was like, no, I remember why I haven't gone back to this.
Yeah. Is Dancing in Circles the one where she's like, I touched myself, that one?
Yes.
Yeah. I like that song.
Yeah, but that's it's like Sex Dreams, but not as good.
It is. Yeah.
Sex Dreams is a much better song.
So, very interesting. Because I actually, when this came out, I was like, oh, this might be her best album. And now listening back, I'm like, doesn't even crack my top three, to be honest.
Nope.
So,
Agreed.
Very interesting how music changes as time goes on.
Yeah.
And what feels right in the moment isn't always the thing that lasts longer.
That lasts.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that project, although not my favorite, did lead to one of my favorite Gaga moments of her career, which is the better version of this album, which is the Star Is Born soundtrack.
Yes.
This was one of, if not my favorite movie that year. I don't remember, 2018? Yeah.
Was it 2018? Yeah.
Yeah. Incredible, beautiful film, heart-wrenching, so sad. I can only watch it like once every 2 years because it really is hard. It's a hard watch. But I think this soundtrack is fantastic. What do you think?
Yeah, so agreed that the movie actually isn't my favorite as a whole. Mm-hmm. I really struggle, and I know this is the intent, but I really struggle with this the way he treats her in the second half of the movie. That's really, really, really hard to watch.
It is hard to watch.
I don't think it's bad filmmaking. It's good filmmaking. It's a tough movie, but this soundtrack is amazing. I forgot how good some of the Bradley Cooper solo songs are.
Seriously.
The guitar in this song or in this album I found out was played by Willie Nelson's son throughout.
Oh,
and
I didn't know
just
that.
Absolutely is crazy on this album.
Nailed it. The guitar on this is crazy.
Nuts. And obviously every time Gaga sings is like, holy shit.
What a voice, right? It's just this is the first time I think she really shows us like how much of a vocalist she is.
Yeah. I was re-listening to La Vie en Rose. I was like shell shocked. Mm-hmm. I forgot how great of a vocalist she is.
Yeah.
The fact she's basically Celine Dion, but just having more fun. Like, honestly, in terms of her ability to sing, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I think Maybe It's Time is like one of the most gorgeous guitar ballads ever.
So good. So good.
And Bradley sounds really good. Like he's a good singer.
He sounds great throughout the entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a really good singer. The most interesting part of this soundtrack to me is actually what happens when she kind of goes into her pop thing.
When she becomes Allie. Yeah.
When she becomes Allie. So this is the bridge between Joanne and Chromatica.
Yes.
So one of my all-time favorite Gaga songs. God, what the hell is it called? Hunter's gonna kill me.
Want to hear Body Face?
Nope. Please hold.
Look what I found.
Nope. It's not even on the album.
Why did you do that?
No, it's not. The Cure. There we go.
Oh yeah, which was recorded for this project.
Yes. So this is my favorite fun fact that I tell everybody. It's like whenever people talk about You'll Always Find Your Way Back Home from the Hannah Montana soundtrack, I'm always like, did you know that was written by Taylor Swift? This is my favorite. This is my favorite fun fact about A Star Is Born soundtrack, which is The Cure, which is one of my favorite Gaga songs, was written in the sessions for A Star Is Born. And I think she just liked it too much and she kept it as a single for herself. But it's like you can definitely hear it in songs like Heal Me and in what's the other Hair Body Face. Yeah. Those are the two. You can really hear the seeds of that in that. And I think The Cure really is the bridge into Chromatica. So there's a lot of timeline stuff that you can really track here in just within this soundtrack. I know that in the context of the movie, I'm supposed to hate Why Did You Do That? And I fear I can't hate that song if I tried.
It's a good song.
It's a bop. Are the lyrics cringe? Yeah. Is that the point? Yeah.
Yes.
Am I moving? Every time. I am moving every time.
It's so funny because it's clearly written to be, what if we wrote a trashy pop song in this, like to illustrate what the industry is doing to her? And yet they still made it be a great song, which is so annoying.
It is so annoying. That's what I'm saying. I know I'm supposed to hate it, but I just can't hate it. I'm sorry. Like Gaga also, and her pop bag, I was always
that one was written by Diane Warren, who famously is like on the funniest Oscar streak of all time, which is like 14 nominations with no win.
No wins. Poor girl.
Yeah. Some people are predicting it might happen on Sunday because everyone's just so sick of Amelia Paris. So they just might give it to Diane Warren this time for her song from the 688. Anyway, but
that's so funny. Yeah, I love the pop stuff on here, but the magnum opus here is Always Remember Us This Way.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before on our movies pods. So if you want to go check that out from about this time last year, our favorite songs from the movies, we both had Always Remember Us This Way on our top 10 list.
Yeah,
it's the perfect song.
Brilliant.
It is not the song of this movie because we all know Shallow was the big moment.
Yes,
but it's our song of this movie.
Yes, so. This is like the millennial stomp and holler stuff. Serious singer-songwriter stuff that I wish was on Joanne a little bit more.
Yeah, this isn't really stomp and holler though. It's more like 70s.
Yes, 100%.
But it's the same folk spirit. It's just done in a more timeless way.
Yes,
than
agreed.
That, which I felt like was kind of derivative.
And her voice.
The stomp and holler era, I'm so glad is over. I'm glad we
so glad. One of my least favorite eras of music ever.
Just truly terrible.
Hated it.
It could have been good because the early roots of it were good. The early like indie folk stuff that prompted this stomp and holler moment is good, but then what became of it is just truly heinous. And
the Lumineers deserve jail time. That's what I'll say.
Okay, one of my weird takes is that I really love their second album with Cleopatra and Ophelia on it and Angela. Great album. Sorry.
Can't
stand that. I do not like Hey Oh Hey or whatever that song was. That was a terrible song.
Like top 10 worst songs ever.
Their second album I like a lot. So
yeah. But I think, this isn't a perfect soundtrack. There's some duds in here. Like I don't like Music to My Eyes very much. I don't like what's the one she sings towards the end? Before I Cry.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some duds on here, but there's also some great Look What I Found. It's such a fantastic piano song. Like, holy shit. Digging My Grave is such a great
Digging My Grave was my favorite
country western song.
I forgot about that song until revisiting this, and I was like, oh wow. They sound good on it
together. Yeah.
With her and him singing the same octave, and she's just like skrelting. Yes. It's like awesome.
So fantastic. Love I love how diverse this soundtrack is.
Sorry.
I love how much she was able to just explore genre in this soundtrack. I think their chemistry is fantastic. I mean, for a long time, people were shipping them, Bradley and Lady Gaga.
Well, I was going to say that the performance of this era is the Oscars performance, which was one of the most sexually charged things I've ever seen with my two eyes.
I felt like I was intruding.
I did too. Definitely felt like I was in their bedroom watching. Yeah. I know that they weren't actually together, allegedly, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the memoir someday.
Yeah. I agree, but I think that this is just a really such a cool project for her. I know it's not really considered like a Lady Gaga album, but her hand is all over it, and I think she just took kind of pieces of everything that came right before and everything that came directly after, and kind of just made a really interesting, fun soundtrack that made for a great movie.
Yeah. One last fun thing from this, I catered the premiere of this movie, and that was the moment where I realized what Gaga was in terms of her impact. She was followed around in that premiere by an entourage of 25 to 30 people at all times.
Oh wow.
And in juxtaposition, Bradley Cooper, the director and star of this movie, was just frequently just chilling in the corner by himself, like hanging out with one or two other people. And I just think that's incredible. That Gaga just commands that kind of attention, and even at this point, which was a little bit after her sort of pop, superstardom, that she was still at that level where she was the most interesting person in a room of hundreds of cool people. So very, very.
There
cool.
could be 99 people. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh gosh. 3 favorites from this one.
For me, I'm going to go Always Remember Us This Way, Look What I Found, and I'm going to go Maybe This Time. Maybe It's Time.
I think those are my 3 favorites too.
Yeah. Definitely a shout out to Hair Body Face. I love Hair Body Face. But
I also love Hair Body Face. Yeah. And I
also
also
the order of how I shower.
That's a deranged order.
Hair, body, face? That's the only order.
Yeah. No, face, hair, body. That's my order.
That's insane of you because your shampoo's getting in your face and clogging up your pores. After you
what I actually do is hair, face, hair, body. See, my shower routine is
I'm deranged?
I do my shampoo, and then I do my face, and then I put my conditioner in, and then while the conditioner is soaking, then I wash my body, and then I rinse my hair.
Do you condition every day?
Absolutely not. I only wash every like 3-4 days.
Oh, I wash my hair every day. I'm not supposed to, but I do condition.
Yeah, you can probably lay off that a little bit.
Yeah,
but you also have straight hair, so it's not as big of a deal. With curly hair, you kind of have to. You can't let it. You can't wash it every day, or it won't be healthy. So
interesting. Sorry for the tangent.
No, that was a good social clip right there.
Yeah, there you go. And then we're at Chromatica, our final stop in this journey. Okay,
absolutely.
I want to hear your thoughts on Chromatica because I know that you're not as huge of a fan, and I just want you to touch on it briefly on why that is.
Okay, I have nothing about this album is bad. I just do not really listen to club music. It's just not a genre that I care about or connect with.
Yeah.
And so I don't really go out dancing. Like none of this is made for me, and that's super fine. It's well-made music. Nothing really clicks for me. The only song that really stands out is Rain on Me, and that's just because I've heard it a lot. Sure. And so I still think it is such a shame that the pandemic happened the year that everyone was releasing dance music. Like Future Nostalgia and Chromatica came out in the same year, and no one could dance. And that is just truly devastating because that's where the culture was at the point, and it's just such a bummer that never happened.
It is. Because then we got years of bedroom pop, and that was quite a slump.
I know, dude. It kind of ruined the whole momentum of it, but we're back now. Pop's
we
back
are back.
Now.
Oh, we're for sure back. We're
super back. But yeah, I want to let you talk about this album because I know it means more to you. And I revisited it. I didn't finish it the first time I listened to it in 2020. Finished it this time again. It's just not really sticking, but I appreciate the progression, and it does very much feel like if Ali sunk into Lady Gaga's own influence, and she was just like, you know what, let's make some dance house music. You know,
I think Lady Gaga's really good at dance music, and I was really excited that she was making a dance album. And you know what? As much as it's sad that we couldn't go dance to these things in 2020, this and Future Nostalgia saved me during the pandemic because it was so miserable and so lonely. And to just have some records that were just fucking fun. And I was going on a lot of walks at that time. And I take 5-mile walks every morning in the summer when it's nice.
5 miles? Wow.
Yeah. And it's because of this album, actually. It started out, I wanted to listen to Chromatica the day it came out, and I didn't really want to be stuck in my apartment. I was like, you know what, it's the morning, I'll go on a walk and listen to this. And I was having so much fun, I just kept walking, and it ended up being 5 miles, and that's kind of what stuck. So, for me, that makes this album a little bit special. It just was a really fun thing to have in a really dark time. And to me, there's a lot of standouts on this album. I love so many songs on this album. I do think it has aged not quite as well as something like an Art Pop has as a whole, but I do think this is actually maybe her most consistent record. And
it's very consistent. It's super cohesive. Yeah.
So there's not really a dud on here to me that takes me out. It's not like a Jewels and Drugs, right?
No.
I think this is actually like the album to me that feels the most like a really tight package. And for that, I appreciate it. I know that it's not widely considered like one of her best, but it actually is. It's probably my second favorite.
I love that.
Because of just how dancey, how easy it is, how radio friendly it is. And Rain on Me, you're right, is a fucking classic, and it should be one of her most popular songs, and I think it is probably.
Yeah.
I love the interludes, the Chromatica 1, 2, and 3. The instrumental interludes are super fun. Obviously, Chromatica 2 into 911 is such a moment. I love that transition with the beat drop into 911. I think songs like 911 and Replay are very reminiscent of Born This Way and Art Pop Gaga. And I think those immediately stuck with the fans, but I really liked the glossy stuff on here. Rain on Me. I think Enigma is a classic. That is such a great dance pop song and did not get enough love at all. And I think Sign from Above is a little cringe with Elton John, but I really like it.
I actually like that one too. I'll say that one stuck out to me.
Like really, really fun. And then to me, Babylon, I think might be her best album closer.
Oh, okay.
I love Babylon. It's basically Vogue. It's a queer anthem, but it's so good. It's so listenable. Such a fun one to sing along to. Me and Hunter love Babylon. We bump that song a lot. So, yeah, I think it's it's not like groundbreaking, and I think that's why people didn't love this from her, was because it wasn't really pushing music forward, and she's such a pioneer and such a trendsetter that I think this, when she said she was going back to pop, I think people were expecting Born This Way. People are expecting art pop. And then she kind of gave us just a really very center dance pop album. But I think she was due for one to just like make some dance music. Do you know what I mean? Like I think she was due for that.
I 100% agree. Because of her mission of, uplifting the LGBTQ community, she needed to make a gay dance club album.
Yeah.
This was it, and it's good.
This was it. Yeah, and I do really like it still. It made my top 10 that year. And I listened to it today, and I was jamming. It's the last one. I did a marathon this morning. I listened to the Fame Monster, and Born This Way yesterday, but today I listened to Art Pop, Joanne, Star Is Born, and Chromatica back to back. So,
oh my God, I respect the hustle. It took me a whole week to go through all these. So
yeah, it was a marathon, but it's a great. Chromatica was just a great way to round it out. It's just super fun. I think Mayhem is going to take the pop return, the Gaga return to pop, and make it a little bit more of a return to the stuff that people were wanting.
So what are your top 3 on this album?
For me, it's Rain on Me, Enigma, probably, and I do love Alice. That's a great album opener, but I'm probably going to say Babylon is my third.
Awesome.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, because nothing stuck with me all that much. I'll just say Rain on Me that I love.
Yeah.
And I need to listen to this one more, to be totally blunt.
Yeah.
Before I can come up with some more favorites.
Sure.
But any takeaways from this whole listening experience, and what do you think that is going to say about what we can expect on Mayhem next week?
I think one of my main takeaways is that we can't expect with Gaga.
Yes, I agree.
She has zigged and zagged so much in her career, and anytime you think that there's a progression to something, she's like, nah, I'm going to do something completely unexpected. So I think that's what has kept her so exciting all these years, which I love. And I've also noticed that, kind of a la Taylor, the lead single is not always a good predictor of what's to come on the album. So
think about Applause on Art Pop. Yeah.
Yep. And Perfect Illusion on Joanne.
And Born This Way.
And Born This Way. Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much Disease and Abracadabra are going to be predictors. I hope they are predictors for what's to come, because I'm obsessed with both of those, and I love.
Yeah, same.
I feel like this is the darkest she's ever gone, and I think that just suits her super well. I'm excited to see what's to come. But even we can't really expect what influence Chromatica is going to have on this, because in between Chromatica was the Harlequin stuff, right?
Yeah.
We did a lot of jazz for a few years. We did a lot of jazz and some movies. So I think we can't really bridge that gap. I don't think. I think it's going to be kind of out of nowhere, unpredictable, which is exciting.
I am predicting some love songs, because it seems like her relationship with her now husband Michael is very, very safe and
agreed,
comforting and sweet, and I'm really happy that she's found that love in her life.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that we get a little bit of an insight into that, which I think we will, because she's always worn her heart on her sleeve in so many ways.
Well, I'm a big fan of Michael, because he's the reason this album is happening.
I know. Thank God for him.
He's the one who told her, girl, you need to get back and write some pop music.
He built the studio in her house so that she didn't have to go anywhere. Like, incredible. I love him.
What a guy.
Yeah. I
love the song Love Drug is such an intriguing one for me, because it sounds, like Love Game. So I'm excited to see if that's kind of a callback. I am really excited for Killa featuring Gesaffelstein.
Yeah.
I don't know who that is, but it's giving Scheisse.
Like it's giving gefilte fish, the Jewish Passover food. I've never heard of that artist in my life.
I haven't either. Zombie Boy sounds really fun. I just think I think it's going to be a really fun
I do too
album, and I think I have a feeling this could be like a top 3er for me.
Yeah,
if she lands it. So
interesting choice to put Die With a Smile on this album. I really expected it to be the closing credit song for Joker.
I don't like that choice, but it kind of just feels like she needed the streams for the album, and Die With a Smile already had so many, so she was like, I'll just
2 billion. 2 billion. That Crazy. Song is enormous.
So popular.
Who knew?
So average to me.
So average. Great work by both of them for making something so popular, but they've done better. They've both done better.
Yes. Agreed. So what's your final ranking of Lady Gaga's discography?
Okay. So it's hard for me to be objective about A Star Is Born because it's so different. That might be number 1 for me. Like, I just really love A Star Is Born. But I'm not going to include it in this. So I'll just go Art Pop at 1, The Fame Monster at 2, Born This Way, surprisingly, at 3 for me. I was surprised by that. Joanne at 4, Chromatica at 5, and The Fame at 6.
Okay. All right. Cool. We have the same ending. The Fame is also my least favorite. For me, it's Art Pop at 1. So we have our bookends are the same. Art Pop at 1, Chromatica at 2, The Fame Monster at 3, A Star Is Born at 4.
Okay.
Born This Way 5, Joanne at 6, The Fame at 7.
So we really only differed in our placement of Chromatica and A Star Is Born.
Yes.
To be honest.
Yeah.
That's really our only. Everything else is pretty much chalk. So.
Yep. My top three are big pop moments. So
yes,
that just goes to show what I gravitate towards. But
yeah, and I'm
excited.
For me, I would have expected Joanne to be in my top 3, but re-listening, I enjoyed Born This Way a little bit more throughout than Joanne. There's just some cringe stuff on Joanne.
I did too.
There's
a lot of cringe stuff on Joanne. I agree.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm looking forward to Mayhem. I can't wait to see what it's going to be like. I feel like it's going to be a huge release this year. So,
I imagine that we'll be back pretty shortly with a quick review of Mayhem, probably deep dive into that album as well. So definitely look forward to that. We'll probably also hit Lisa from Blackpink just released an album today as we're recording on the 28th. So I'm going to check that out as well. And I believe someone else kind of big too.
So Close to What? Tate McRae.
Oh yeah, that was last week, right?
Yep. We gotta dive into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have not listened to that yet, so I will get on that. Cool. What's sparking joy for you, real quick, as we wrap up here?
The weather warming up for sure is one.
Yeah,
I can feel my seasonal depression lifting. And I would say you'll probably say the same thing, but White Lotus is getting off to a great start. I'm already hooked. The relationships of the people feel even weirder this time.
It's so weird, dude. The Southern family is so uncomfy.
Oh, so uncomfy. It's horrible. I feel very called out by the 3 girlfriend group where they're all just like talking shit about each other
when the other one's away. Yeah, it's so
I'm like,
good.
I do fear that this is me, and I really I'm in this play and I don't like it.
Yeah.
That's 100%. How I feel. But yeah, I'm uncomfortable at every point during this show, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Casting Parker Posey to play Jennifer Coolidge in a different font was inspired.
Yeah.
Because I was worried what the show would do without her. She was so central to it.
She was.
And putting Parker Posey in this as the just like perpetually drugged out Southern mother is
so funny.
Her choices, she's making about 3,000 choices an episode, and about 2,500 of them are working. The other 500 are not at all, but I'm obsessed. I'm so interested.
You can just tell she's having so much fun.
So much fun. In fact, I know that about all these actors on the show. It's one of the rare shows where everyone has to audition, and so you can tell there's like no ego. These people just want to act, and they're just having the best time. I love it. And Lisa from Blackpink is doing a great job.
She is, yeah.
She's I had the no most idea famous person
until about a day ago.
Ever been on the show. So congratulations to her.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Yeah,
I could say other things, but we'll just stick to the White Lotus. And I'm very excited for the Oscars on Sunday. I can't wait.
Oh, of course. Of course.
So
yep.
I saw I'm Still Here yesterday, the last of my Best Picture noms, and very sad movie. It's a Brazilian film, very timely too. It's about a family whose lives are affected when a fascist regime disappears the patriarch of their family, and how they have to deal with that. And I don't know, upsetting that feels like it could happen at any moment here.
Feels timely.
Now, but a really good movie, and if you have a chance to see it at some point, I recommend it. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, we will see you guys soon with the Mayhem deep dive and hitting on Blackpink, Lisa, and of course Tate McRae on our next episode. We will see you soon. Thanks for listening to the Daily Record Spin.